The likelihood that your ERP implementation is going to be more complex than you expect, that it's going to take longer than you expect, is incredibly high. I also think the likelihood that you're going to realize all of your expected business benefits is on the low end. That's what I want to talk about today. My name is Marcus Harris. I'm a software and technology attorney. For the last 20 years, I've drafted and negotiated a variety of technology-related contracts and litigated failed digital transformations in courts across the country. As an ERP customer, you are at an incredible disadvantage when you're trying to have a successful implementation. And to some extent, I think that is by design. ERP implementation consultants and ERP vendors act in their self-interest. They minimize the complexity of ERP implementation projects, and they set unreasonable expectations. And as an ERP customer, really, the likelihood that you're going to be able to go into this with eyes wide open, I think, is on the lower end. The reality is that the life cycle of an ERP system is something like 15 to 20 years. And so I think it's safe to say that this is not something that you are doing on a regular basis. Here is what you are up against. One, I think you're dealing with biased consultants, and this can really run the gamut from software selection consultants. It can run the gamut from integration consultants, implementation partners, whatever it is. Even industry analysts, I think, can have a large dose of bias in discerning who's objective, who has your best interest at heart, really is challenging. And I think the reality is that these software consultants, whatever type of consultant they are always going to act in their self-interests. They receive kickbacks from ERP vendors to promote their products, to sell that software. There is an ecosystem around each one of these software vendors. There's an SAP ecosystem, there's an Infor ecosystem, there's an Oracle ecosystem for sure. And if you're a consultant that makes their living implementing, integrating, modifying, and customizing SAP software, what software are you going to recommend? And I think the reality is you can hire a software selection consulting company that is going to make a recommendation and go forward with an implementation project on your behalf, but they may already have an understanding of who they're going to recommend, despite what kind of due diligence they do into your business requirements or your business processes. It's almost as if those business requirements are irrelevant because they've already made a decision that they're going to make the recommendation that you utilize SAP or utilize Infor or Oracle or whoever it is. And that really isn't at your, they don't have your best interest at heart. And I think that's a gross understatement, to be honest with you. It's incredibly common for these consultants, as they're doing an evaluation of your business processes and your business requirements, to really undersell the complexity of the software implementation project. They're going to minimize the cost. They're going to tell you that they can do it faster than they actually can, deal with it on the back end through change orders. All of this sets you up for failure because if you have an unreasonable expectation that an implementation is going to take 12 months, let's just say, when in reality it's going to take 24 to 36 months, the resources and the time and effort that you're devoting to this is based on a misrepresentation. You're making decisions based on a 12-year implementation project plan, when in reality, it's going to be 36 months. You're being deprived of, the decision-making ability to devote appropriate resources to the project, to walk away from the project because it's too complex for your business. And this is all in their self-service, to the bottom line, essentially. So I think the likelihood that you're going to run into difficulties from the get-go is incredibly high. And this isn't limited at all to the software consultants. They are not the only biased ones in the business. Even when you're looking for objective advice, if you're looking to Gartner, if you're looking to Forrester, whoever you're looking to, you're looking at analyses, you're looking at recommendations, you're looking at magic quadrants, whatever you're looking at to get an understanding of what software is going to be the best fit for your business requirements. Those are not always objective either. Those studies are oftentimes funded by, paid for by large software vendors. They give these companies, large budgets. They pay them large amounts of money in order to essentially, soft pitch their particular product. And you may not have any idea that that is going on. So even when you're trying to look for objective guidance in this area, you're getting biased information. And I think as you go through this process, you have to go through it with eyes wide open. You have to have an understanding of what you're getting yourself into, and you have to take everything with a high, dose of salt, a big grain of salt, if you will. And I think in addition to biased consultants, biased analysts, certainly software salespeople do not have your best interest at heart. They are compensated by the amount of software that they sell. They are commission-based. They are trained to sell the sizzle, not the steak. I think it's telling that, for every business requirement you have, they are going to have a response. Can the software do this? Yes, it can. But what they aren't telling you is, yeah, it can do that. One, it may not do it well, or in reality, it may not do it out of the box at all, and you're going to need modification or customization to get you to the point for it to even remotely address whatever your business requirement is. But the answer to the question is going to be yes. Can it do that? Sure. It just requires a modification or a customization, but nowhere do they tell you how much that modification or that customization is going to cost. As they sell the software to you, they do get an understanding of what your business requirements are, what your business processes are like, but they're incented to minimize the functionality gaps between how the software deals with these issues, what the functionality actually does, and any gaps between how the software operates and what your business requirements are. Again, it's all minimized and made to be, sugar-coated, if you will, so that they can sell that software to you. And the problem with this is really, all of these small misrepresentations, which may not seem like a big deal in isolation, they all add on to each other, and they set you up for really failure in some ways, because I think you have unreasonable expectations. And again, if you think this really is an out-of-the-box solution, some sort of a silver bullet piece of technology that's going to solve all your business needs, that's what they want you to think. And the reality is there is no one-stop solution. There is no silver bullet. There is no one-size-fits-all. There are always going to be functionality gaps. And I think if they are honest with you, that is what is doing you a favor. If they can say, look, our software does not do this. It will do that. It may not do it particularly well, and it will only do that after X amount of dollars are spent on modification and customization. That's a software vendor that has your best interest at heart. They're telling it to you how it really is, but the unfortunate reality is nobody does that. They just want to sell you software, let you figure it out, and go on their merry way. And I think that is the reality of the software business. And I think in 2025, I really do expect to see an increase in the amount of digital transformation failures. And I think it really has to do with the way that the software is sold, the fact that the system is essentially rigged against you. You don't have any kind of transparency into the way that these ecosystems support each other. You don't understand what the biases are. And I think you've got to get, to the extent that you can, independent, objective advice. And those types of consultants, those types of lawyers, those types of firms are out there. And I think that really is the way forward. Again, I think the likelihood that your digital transformation is going to run into trouble is incredibly high. And in some ways, it's kind of designed to do that. Remember, these are time and materials projects. The more problems that you have, the more money that these people make. And I think you've got to cut through it. You've got to have your best interest at heart. You have to understand what your business requirements are. You've got to have an understanding of what the functionality gaps are and what the software actually does versus what they're presenting it as doing. And if you do that, I think you're giving yourself a dog in the fight and you're setting yourself up for success. If you have any questions about anything that we've talked about in this video, please feel free to reach out to us at taftlaw.com. Thank you. To expect, I think, is pretty much on the.
Yeah.
It was good until
It
I
was
got
good.
creative there.